Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a theory that is so out there, it claims our entire understanding of history is wrong. We're going to walk through the claims of author Mario Arndt, who says that massive chunks of our past were just made up. Let's take a look at his most shocking ideas. So, let's just jump right in with the book's central, explosive question. What if the history we've been taught, the timeline we all just accept as fact, isn't actually real? It's a pretty wild starting point, and it really sets the stage for everything that follows. The author, Mario Arndt, doesn't beat around the bush. His core claim is that huge parts of ancient and medieval history weren't just recorded with a few mistakes. No, he says they were completely fabricated, systematically built using hidden patterns and even secret codes. Okay, so if you're going to make a claim that big, you need some kind of evidence, right? So what does the author present? Well, let's start with the first major theme of the book, the idea that there are these unbelievable, repeating patterns hiding in our timeline. The first piece of evidence the book points to is something it calls the 800-year cycle. The argument here is that the lives of these major historical figures line up way too perfectly. For instance, Charles V is born exactly 1600 years, that's two 800-year cycles after Julius Caesar, and Charlemagne dies exactly 800 years after the death of Augustus. Is that just a coincidence, or is it a pattern? And according to the author, this isn't just about famous rulers. This 800-year rhythm supposedly pops up everywhere, shaping major historical events, from the epic conquests of Rome to key battles in Germany, and even the invasions of nomadic groups like the Huns and the Mongols. The claim is that history is literally repeating itself in these precise intervals. This whole theory of historical copies then builds up to one of the book's absolute bombshells. It questions the very existence of one of the most famous figures in history, Charlemagne. Arndt's theory is that Charlemagne is basically a historical ghost, a complete copy of a much later king, Charles I of Anjou. The parallels he points to are really uncanny. Their coronations and their deaths are separated by this weirdly consistent gap of about 470 years. And get this, even their fathers' names, Pippin and Philip, are supposedly just different versions of the same root name. The author also brings up physical evidence. So take a look at these statues, one of Charlemagne's supposed grandfather, Karl Martel, and the other of Charles I of Anjou. The book claims their resemblance is so striking because one was literally the model for the other, created centuries after the fact. All right, let's switch gears for a second and look at another piece of the author's puzzle. The claim is that history wasn't just faked using repeating events, but also with repeating numbers, specifically numbers like this one, 37. This leads into what the book calls the Bible code in history. The theory is that certain key numbers from the Bible, especially 37 and 73, were used as a blueprint to build historical timelines. For instance, the reigns of the Merovingian kings seem to be built around this 73-year gap. But the book goes even further, suggesting the same code connects to modern events, even arguing these numbers show up in patterns around the 9/11 attacks. So, if history is really filled with all these artificial patterns, you have to ask, how could anyone possibly have created it? This brings us to the author's proposed method, something he calls history hacking. Arndt's idea of history hacking is to basically treat history like a piece of computer software. The idea is you stop looking at events as random occurrences and instead start searching for the underlying code, trying to reverse engineer the algorithms that the alleged creators used. The book suggests a surprisingly simple mathematical formula was one of the key tools for these supposed forgers. It claims that by starting with the number 529, multiplying it, and then subtracting 1,000, you can generate the starting dates for all the major ancient calendars, from the Roman to the Jewish. They were all artificially created and synchronized. And what was the end result of all this math and copying? According to the author, you get these perfectly structured lists of kings and rulers. The book argues that it wasn't just royal family trees that were invented. The same claim is made for the official list of popes, suggesting it was also artificially designed to create this seamless but totally fake historical timeline. Just look at this example from the German kings who ruled between 911 and 1313. The author highlights a pattern that is just bizarrely neat. Each dynasty starts with a Conrad, followed by a Heinrich, then a block of other kings, and it ends with another Heinrich. And that block of kings in the middle, it grows perfectly each time. First 3, then 4, then 5. The author's point is, that's just too perfect to be a coincidence. The author also goes after the astronomical records that we use to pin down dates in our timeline. He actually quotes other historians who point out that the vast majority of ancient reports of eclipses just don't line up with modern calculations. So Arndt's conclusion is pretty simple. If the astronomical anchors are wrong, then the entire timeline is just floating, unproven. So all of this tearing down of the official story builds to the book's most dramatic part. If our timeline is a work of fiction, then what's the real story? This is where Arndt proposes a completely new and really radically different chronology of human history. Right at the heart of this new timeline is a fundamental challenge to the dating of one of the most important figures in all of history. The book asks a simple question: when did Jesus Christ really live? Okay, here it is. The book's thesis is that Jesus Christ was actually the Byzantine Emperor Anastas I, whose name literally means the resurrected. But here's the massive twist. Arndt claims his reign wasn't in 491 AD. He argues the real date was 1012 AD, a jump of over 500 years into the future. To really get a sense of how huge this proposed shift is, just look at this comparison. In Arndt's model, Alexander the Great is no longer an ancient figure. He's moved forward more than 1,000 years. This idea completely collapses our concept of antiquity, basically folding it right into the Middle Ages. So, in the end, the book leaves us with this one really provocative question. If these patterns, these codes, these inconsistencies are actually real, then how much of our history is fact and how much of it is just a carefully constructed story? It's a thought that challenges the very foundation of everything we think we know about where we came from.